action-packed fantasy anthology, including stories with characters considered half-human for various reasons, such as being multiracial or hybrid species, shorter than the average human, characters lacking some sense of humanity, possessed characters, etc. Despite the derogatory views of others, these characters still manage to, at least sometimes, act in heroic ways. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Hembar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Half-Human Heroes. Half-Human Heroes is a 2023 anthology by booktubers with 10 stories, and it is edited by Jeremy Fee, who is also a booktuber and one of the contributors. So it starts with a foreword by Philip Chase, who is, again, another booktuber, though he does not have a short story in the anthology. It is a good foreword, kind of introducing the idea of such an anthology. And then we also have a preface by Jeremy Fee, again, the editor, and then saying how the stories are by, well, people who love to read and then love to write and share literature and stuff with other people, of course, online or in many different ways. So the first story is Dishonored in Death by Mason A.D. This is a story of the woman, one who had a loved one's life stolen recently. The naming the character has kind of a sort of an archetype, really plants the idea of a vengeful woman, but with room to access that nurturing side as well. And it also highlights this archetypal ferocity of vengeance that has overcome her. She's described as a wraith who enjoys no pleasure. And she is a dwarf woman in an urban fantasy setting. There's wires and police sirens are mentioned early on. And she is a twin. Her twin brother is dead and dishonored even by bad magic. I'm a twin as well in real life, and I'm always a sucker for a twin main character. And beyond being a dwarf, she's actually, a demi-human, right? And half fae somehow, so half dwarf. She's also half human in the way kind of Achilles is after Patroclus dies, and he goes into his godly rage, right, in the Iliad. So Mason 80 is, aka Mason in the Dark, and he showcases some great style and a very great example of a revenge story that is not overly grim and terrible, like many often are, but has the compassion contrasting it. Again, it's like the Iliad, right, in that sense. So overall, it's a great opening story for the anthology, I thought. And then there's Goatman's Bridge by P.M. Brown. It's tale number 2. It starts with a note saying the story was found in fragments and pieced together that P.M. Brown is deceased. It's quite an interesting tale, and so starts the story. It's July 2nd, 1966. And Marlon Timothy tells of his childhood in an orphanage, how his left eye can see fairy things, kind of like a witchy eye. And it seems to be a tale of magical realism, which I haven't read much of, but at least that I know of, at least. But it starts off kind of like mid-century U.S. tale, but goes into some rather satanic, sexual, and even a tad bit of, racist ground. It is that time period. Sadly, of course, these are all bad here. And in the end, Marlon, or MT as he goes by most of the time, saves his people by supernatural means, of course, because this is a fantasy anthology. Again, it's gripping, and it's a little out of my wheelhouse, but I did actually really enjoy it. And it's, I don't know, it kind of made me interested for more. And then story 3 is called The Band Gets Together by Dane Cobain. I believe I'm saying his name right. Groin Gonadson is a dwarf. He's over 100 years old, living in the early 1990s, I believe. Of course, this is a fantasy creature out in the open, and Groin, I don't know, call him Groin, is at a bar listening and to, bands perform poorly, essentially, or people perform poorly. Groin wants to play, particularly with a band that he doesn't have. So this is a fantasy underground music scene where an open mic has, I don't know, it's interesting. It's a good, fun story. It kind of felt like a prologue of sorts, which happens sometimes in short stories, but the band does get together, and that is, the name of the story. So anyways, story 4 is the story by Jeremy Fee, the extraordinary editor, poet, writer, etc. Home of the Gnome is the story's title, and unsurprisingly, our protagonist is a gnome named Z. Or, he looks like a gnome. He's more than that. He is worried about his home with the more, worldly events going around. He lives with a male half-elf prostitute, and this whimsical, horny elf is something like Kugel, if you've ever read Vance's Kugel. Uh, Z seems like many hobbits. He's uncaring to the outside world besides how it disturbs his peace at home. But with the sexual bits, it's almost like an adult comic version. And truly, it's about doing the right thing, even when you convince yourself you shouldn't. It's very fun, of course. So then story 5 is by Jessica Haas. I believe that's how you say her name. It's titled Abandoned Hope. It is about a winged, mischievous being told in first person. It starts with this demon, though is really a half crow, chasing a woman for fun, not out of malevolence. It's rather dark, but it's also hopeful, and I quite enjoyed it. Story 6 is Amaranthine Amphitheater by Liam Cutie Hall, which is me. So I won't really tell you how I feel about it, but it is a short sword and sorcery story about an artificial woman, in the vein of Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell, Cassandra Kresna from those novels, or Alias of Westgate from Forgotten Realms, with some, like Shirella Jouari mixed in, and a bunch of other things. But anyways, she's called Renata, and I have a novella that actually should hopefully come out at some point about her origin story. The story is told in a different fashion. It's a recollection of recent events as she lays dying. For those curious, I got the idea by mixing The Curse of the Golden Skull by Robert E. Howard and The Sadness of the Executioner by Fritz Leiber. Also, fans of Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio may notice an Easter egg in there from Sun Eater Universe. And I also believe this is the shortest of the stories in the anthology. Anyways, story 7 is S.D. Huston's Lies of the Sunstone and the Hybrid Prince. So it gives off more epic fantasy feels. Our main character is Prince Balian, called the Hybrid Prince because of his Moon Fae mother and human father. Adria, I believe, however, is the main character. She's really the main character. She is a diseased fae seeking healing, though maybe not honestly. This one feels like an intro to a larger story. It was very easy to get into, honestly, and I really liked it. Kind of reminded me some like Forgotten Realms adventures as well, actually. If there is more following up this one, I definitely would be interested in reading it. Story 8 is Red Eyes by Kupul Yosef Kark. I hope I said that correctly. It is a story about 4 adventurers of sorts, 2 senior and experienced and 2 greenhorns. This involves a bandit mage and a roguish man, and a helper of potentially half-human Sam. I really like the reversal in it. And this one was very interesting. It's right up my alley. It feels almost very sword and sorcery-esque. So I like that one a lot. It's very interesting. I'm not sure if Kark has published anything else. I'd have to look at the notes because it has other books and stuff that all the contributors have published. I just need to look again because it's been a minute. Anyways, and then we have More or Less Human by Margaret Pignard. It is, again, number 9. It is about a girl named Nyosa, now celebrating her 22nd birthday, till everything gets flipped and reality is revealed to be quite different. It's a tale of magic and agency and in another world rather, and it's very, I like it. I like being, I like having things flipped upside down, and it doesn't waste my time with it either, so that's really nice. Last but not least is The Defense of Bergon by David Wiley. It is the 10th story. Tyrlock works in the kitchen as half-human with blue skin and wings. A great host is coming to make war against Bergon, and Tyrlock thinks it will finally be his chance for glory in battle. Fate will have its way, but maybe not all is like the stories. This is very similar in tone to Wiley's previous stories, and it is a nice addition to those tales. It is a great tale to end a collection on, and just very fun. Again, it's similar to Wiley's other tales, but it's also different, and I liked it. It's got a very interesting lesson of sorts, you could say, that kind of, I'm still thinking about a little bit. So anyways, those are the stories. There's 10 great stories here, or at least 9. Hopefully mine's great. And again, thanks to Jeremy Fee for putting this together, and even for Philip for contributing some too. It's cool. It's a nice introduction to hopefully what will be a series of anthologies by booktubers. And, maybe it'll encourage other booktubers to get more into the writing aspects of books. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that the term booktube really just is all encompassing, because even when you're writing or author or something, you're generally writing books too. So anyways, this has been Liam Lyceum, and I will catch you next time.